Have you heard of the game Rogue Lineage? Yeah, I wasn't hopeful. There's a big reason why, but I think I'll save it for now, because realistically it's not very important. What is important is that Rogue Lineage was a roguelike RPG where you would fight other players and slowly accrue abilities for a class from a variety of different weapons. After you had died 3 times, you would lose your character and all progress on it entirely, and start over from the very beginning. Now, that may not be a great pitch, so let me try and sell it a little better. No levels, no displayed stats, no item tooltips, no character paint or quest log. This game was determined to hold your hand as little as possible, and I firmly believe that this was a genius, yet bold, choice by the developers in a time where games attempt to pander and sell to the widest audience. The exploration this game provided was simply unmatched by most others before it. However, there is a plethora of contributing factors to what inspired Rogue Lineage, and before I reveal its biggest secret, we need to go back. Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild is by far one of the best games I have ever played. Coming off the heels of Skyrim and a new Fallout, 2 games which were heavily revered for their perfection of the open-world genre, Nintendo got to work and innovated once again. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how good of a game this was, from its exploration, to its music, to its emergent systems. This game was phenomenal. But what stood out to me the most, what Breath of the Wild put its best foot forward with, was the discovery. This was a game that you really couldn't play twice the same way. Nothing will ever match the emotions felt upon exploring this tragically beautiful Hyrule for the first time. Now I know this is a video about Rogue Lineage, not Breath of the Wild, but you have to stick with me here for a bit. It'll all make sense soon, I promise. I remember those first moments in Breath of the Wild, walking out of Link's century-sealed tomb and laying my eyes on the vastness of the world that awaited me. This moment was, of course, used in all the marketing, and it seemed that Nintendo knew very well where the game's strength lied. But I never imagined this was a feeling that could be delivered constantly, over and over again. That nearly indescribable feeling of excitement and yearning to discover new horizons. The moment where your eyes are opened, almost as if they never had been before, and you practically can't handle the anticipation of it all. Breath of the Wild did this not only well, but often, and I don't think that it ever got stale, at least not for me. Entering the Lost Forest, exploring my first labyrinth, cracking my head around the real first dungeon, and finally embarking into Hyrule's castle for the first time. These were all moments of similar feel, and they are what really sells a game in my eyes. Mystery, wonder, and fantastic possibilities. Okay, quick detour aside, Rogue Lineage is the topic of this video, so let's return to that. I never played Rogue Lineage in its first year. It was a game I wasn't really comfortable spending money on, as the risks far outweighed the rewards in my eyes. But I kept hearing about it. Never seeing gameplay, but hearing from peers and even random people online how good this game actually was. How refreshing it was to them. So, I finally caved and bought the game for myself. Now, I think it's finally time I came clean. I teased at the beginning that Rogue Lineage was somehow different from other games, and that mostly has to do with the stigma revolving a tiny, little, barely relevant media titan called Roblox. Yes, Rogue Lineage was a Roblox game. Now, I don't actually know what you're thinking, but I can take a crack at it. How can a game, made on an engine powered by practically free labor, heavily pushed microtransactions, and meant for middle schoolers, be this impactful? If you give me the chance, I'd love to tell you. Because there is so much more to this story than Roblox. It's very important to me that you understand something right now. By comparing this game to Breath of the Wild, I have set the bar to an impossible height. Rogue Lineage was not a better experience than Breath of the Wild. You have to think of it as an indie game. Hell, think even smaller than that. This was a game with an incredibly small monetary budget, but what they lacked in funds, they all were made up in with passion. I can only hope that you're able to drop your natural assumptions, criticisms, and convictions to see this game in a light that is not one of Roblox, but one of a game created through inspiration and innovation. The first time I booted up Rogue Lineage, I was immediately dropped into the world. This being a fantasy game, there were fantasy races, and I seemed to be a sentient humanoid mushroom. No face, no mouth, no emotion. Something about this was charmingly unique to me. But, without much more thought, I carried on out of the spawn area and was greeted with a dark and gloomy, yet whimsical cavern. It was no small cavern either. This was clearly an important location, one called Scroomville. Then the music swept in. It's what you're hearing now. In fact, just a heads up, most of the time I talk about a location in this game, I will be playing the accompanying soundtrack. To me, there was a soft beauty here. Almost a hidden charm that I would bet money on many people not having discovered for a good while into them playing. So again I carried on, out of the cavern and into a forest. A forest which had its sky obscured by a vast canopy of leaves. I traveled just a bit farther and found a tiny cluster of houses tucked away between two hills. Sure, the town was small, but it was small in a good way. There was no more there than there needed to be. By this point, I had been playing for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I already knew this game was going to be a hidden gem, one that I was going to enjoy a lot. Earlier, I described the feeling that Breath of the Wild was able to convey through its reveal and promise of upcoming discovery. This is something that Rogue Lineage was able to do for me. To a lesser degree, of course, but nonetheless, Rogue Lineage was able to immerse me like no other Roblox game had before. Actually, no other Roblox game came even close to what Rogue Lineage had achieved. And to this day, as I'm writing this script, no other Roblox game has taken that mantle either. But to understand how Rogue Lineage immersed me, we have to talk again about Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild does this thing. I'm not really even sure what to call it. It's as if you're being blindsided by the game. As if something completely unexpected is dropped on you when you least expect it. But not in a Hollywood movie sort of twist way, more in a generous, sort of giving way. As if the game were saying to you, "Here, I have something more to show you. Something more for you to discover." Maybe that discovery was scripted, or maybe it was rewarded for your exploration. Either way, the fact that it wasn't clear really helped to sell this hard-to-describe feeling. For example, in Breath of the Wild, it is quietly hinted that the Master Sword is somewhere in Hyrule. It's never called by that name, instead being called the Sword that Seals the Darkness. Now, without context of what the Master Sword is, this meant little to me. I had never played a Zelda game before this one, so its hints fell on deaf ears and blind eyes. However, when I found the Master Sword, sitting tranquilly within the Korok Forest, my excitement was unbound. I, like many people who play RPGs, heavily enjoy playing a character in games. To think that Link, now nearly an extension of myself personified by my suspension of disbelief, had found the sword that was destined to defeat Ganon? That was an incredible moment. Everyone wants to feel like the hero, and in that moment, I certainly did, because I'm sure that Link did too. Seeing that sword resting in its stone incited a wave of hope to wash over me. This was a meaningful discovery that would certainly turn the tides of the fight against Ganon. Entering this outcropping, feeling the immediate change of mood, this was what I loved in gaming. This was a blindside. Rogue Lineage does a lot of things wrong. I don't think much of that is important in this video, but it is fair to say that the map is nowhere near perfect. There aren't a huge amount of secrets or secluded areas, even in a game where running and permanent death are commonalities. But the few that do exist are executed well. There's a location in the game called the Tundra. It is a huge, brutally harsh environment with limited visibility that requires you to have trained your climbing nearly to max, have a sufficient source of heat so you don't freeze to death, and be progressed enough to the point that not only players, but voracious wolves are able to be fought off. It is also where most of the endgame trainers are, which means that it's an environment you must master if you're intent on reaching the final levels of progression. Me and most of my friends were petrified of the Tundra. We would all go in a group as to not get lost and insist that an experienced player show us around so we could gain even a slight bearing. Eventually, we had to learn it on our own, and I was one of the first amongst my friends to actually take on the challenge. I've always had a great directional sense and a fairly decent photographic memory, so it wasn't too long before I gained a decent understanding of the first few areas in this hell frozen over. Still, death came for me, and often, but I always tried again, even if it meant losing my entire progression just to learn a little more. One time I had went the wrong way, got turned around somehow, and ran into a pack of wolves. I was a mage, so there was not much I could actually do to fight them. They ganged up on me and broke my leg, crippling me and making my escape all the more unlikely. Now somehow I was able to escape, but it wasn't looking good. My torch had gone out, I was slow because of my broken leg, and I was near freezing to death. But that's when I saw it, hidden around a corner against the tall, mountainous barricades of stone. It looked like a door? I wasn't sure, but when I got closer, I attempted to open it, and sure enough, it did open. All at once, the music hit. I could see again, and I began heating up. This was a safe haven. The sleeping snail. I really can't describe the feeling, but it was similar to seeing the Master Sword. Instead of a wave of hope, I was engulfed in a wave of relief. This tiny tavern, amongst the howling storm and hungry wolves, it represented true and honest safety. A respite for the weary. This music is Tarrytown from Breath of the Wild. It is the most fitting soundtrack in the entirety of Rogue Lineage, in my opinion. If you were to ask a handful of Rogue Lineage players, past or present, what this song meant to them, I can assure you, more than half would describe what I just attempted to. How? How can a Roblox game do this? Why has this remained my and many others' favorite location in the game? I mean, speaking design-wise, it's just a checkpoint. A Dark Souls bonfire dressed up in pretty wooden stone. What in the world made it speak to us on a universal level? Time was not kind to Rogue Lineage, and only a year or so after its popularity did it fall from grace. Progressing players are constantly killed by max progressed players for no reason at all, just because they're stronger and so they can. Hackers have invaded in droves because of a lack of moderation. Classes have become unbalanced and unfair to fight against, taking away the excitement of a combat system that was never as stale as it is now. Worst of all, the music has changed because of Nintendo's rampant copyright infringement threats. But still, with all of that going on, I can't help but love this game with all my heart. And it's for the moments like Snail and the Tundra. Examples of this are spread thin throughout the game, and clearly never nearly as impactful as this one location. all that represented different sorts of emotions, whether it be respite, adventure, accomplishment, or seclusion. The emotions Rogue Lineage has been able to conjure within its dedicated players is debatably the most alluring feature of this otherwise cruel and abandoned game. Like I said before, there are plenty of reasons that Rogue Lineage is no longer a good game in the mechanical sense. It's possible that it never really was until players actually became skilled at its combat and knowledgeable of its flaws. However, I see what the developers were making. I see their vision clearly, or at least a reflection of my own vision within theirs, and it is beautiful. Playing this game in silence, or just in a call with friends, is a love that I wish I could enjoy just a little bit longer. The developers have moved on to other Roblox projects now, mainly their newest and innovative game Deepwoken, formerly called Drowned Gods, which is another game that is beautiful and rich in its own right. It will always be amazing to me what can be done in Roblox of all engines with enough passion and vision. It inspires me constantly to follow my dreams of becoming a designer, and I'm not the only one. Countless attempts to mimic what Rogue Lineage has done are littered among Roblox, all that fail short of the true majesty that is Rogue Lineage's world. I truly believe Rogue Lineage is a hidden gem worthy of being analyzed and put upon a pedestal for what it has accomplished. That's the reason I wanted to make this video, because I haven't seen anyone talk about it like this, and that's really sad to me. Rogue Lineage will always have a special place in my heart, and just as things like Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls, Full Metal Alchemist, and other pieces of media influence the creation of Rogue Lineage will influence the creation of my projects as well. I know it's a stupid thing, but I can't thank it enough for existing, for being an integral part of who I am as a game designer. Rogue Lineage, I love you, and I will continue to love you, even in a time when most people don't, when most people can't, out of hatred or despair for what you've become. I see past it. I remember you as you were. And the only way I can thank you is to survive you through my projects and art. Continue your legacy. A legacy that has been hidden from the mainstream. A legacy that has been sullied by the cruel hands of our hubris and forgotten by those who imagined you. I will do my best to carry on your Rogue Lineage. Well, we're at the end now. I hope I was able to teach you something with this video, but if not, I'm glad you watched anyways. I've been your host, PhDPS, and thank you sincerely for watching.